With the film Wiedersehen, Pett portrayed the friendship, laughter, and hardships of a group of immigrant construction workers, becoming an unforgettable cultural icon of the 1980s and 1990s. But behind the glamour, many talented actors have passed away under tragic circumstances, from terminal illnesses to unexpected accidents. Let's look back at the stars who helped build this legend and honor the legacy they left behind. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Michael Angelis as Mickey Startup. Michael Angelis, whose full name is Nicholas Michael Angelis, was born on April 29, 1944, in Paddington, London. He played Mickey Startup, a cunning and scheming businessman in the series Auf Wiedersehen. Pett from 1983 to 1986, when he was 39 years old, bringing an emotional depth to the character that captivated audiences. However, his private life was fraught with persistent stress and personal tragedy. His second marriage to the famous actress Helen Worth, which lasted a decade, seemed like a happy one, but ended in disgrace. In 2001, when the press exposed his affair with model Jennifer Kolaski, who later became his third wife, Angelis's public image crumbled. Helen bitterly filed for divorce. Although they remained friends after their breakup, the split plunged him into a prolonged state of depression. In 2009, the sudden death of his brother, actor Paul Angelis, dealt a devastating blow to Michael. He virtually disappeared from the stage, turning down many major projects and only occasionally appearing in plays such as Midsummer Murders and The Bill. Although he was the unmistakable narrator of Thomas and Friends for 21 years, after 2012 he quietly withdrew from the spotlight and chose a more reclusive life. Angelis was diagnosed with diabetes, but he viewed treatment as an inconvenience rather than a threat. The disease gradually weakened his health, leading to a sudden heart attack on May 30, 2020, at his home in Thatcham, Berkshire. He passed away at the age of 76. Although his death was quiet, the estimated $3 million estate he left behind reflects a life of quiet dedication. Pat Roach, who played Brian Bomber Busbridge, is Francis Patrick Roach. Francis Patrick Roach was born on May 19, 1937, in Birmingham, England. He made a lasting impression playing Brian Bomber Busbridge, a large, gentle construction worker, in the classic series Auf Wiedersehen. Pett, from 1983 to 1986, when he was 46 years old. This role propelled him from the wrestling ring to the television screen. But behind his imposing physique and warm smile lay a life gradually eroded by tragedy and silent sacrifice. Roach was once a judo and heavyweight wrestling champion in Britain and Europe, but severe arthritis forced him into retirement. Leaving sports also meant a major financial blow, forcing him to open a scrapyard and a gym to make ends meet. In 1988, his close friend and fellow actor, Roy Kinnear, died suddenly on a film set. Roach became noticeably quiet, rarely expressing his grief in rare interviews. He once said, "We are big men, but vulnerable. Every loss leaves a scar that no one sees." Furthermore, years of injury caused him constant pain, but he chose to endure it in silence. At the height of his acting career, while playing villains in Indiana Jones, Red Sonja and Willow, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in the late 1990s. Roach quietly battled the disease, rejecting pity and continuing to appear on screen until his health no longer permitted it. He died on July 17, 2004, at the age of 67 and was buried in Bromsgrove Cemetery. Roach left an estimated fortune of $2 million, accumulated from years of hard manual labor and unforgettable roles in British and Hollywood films. James Booth as Kenny Ames. James Booth was born on December 19, 1927, in Croydon, England. At the age of 59, he appeared in the second season of the 1986 television series Auf Wiedersehen. Pett as Kenny Ames, a suave but cunning Englishman living in exile in Marbella, who left a lasting impression despite appearing in only a few episodes. Although not a leading role, Booth made Kenny unforgettable with his mysterious presence and sharp gaze. But Booth's life, much like the character Kenny he portrayed, was a tumultuous journey between glory and bitterness. After the resounding success of the 1964 film Zulu, his career declined throughout the 1970 SE. Unable to secure meaningful roles, he fell into financial uncertainty, often taking on less prominent roles just to make ends meet. Booth once admitted that it was a time when he felt like a shadow of himself, suspended between a glorious past and a cold present. The pressures of work not only weakened his spirit but also strained his family life. Married to Paula Delaney in 1960, with whom he had 4 children, Booth still carried a sense of guilt about his long absences. His demanding Hollywood filming schedule kept him away from his wife and children for extended periods. And in his later years, he confessed, "I've played hundreds of roles, but being a father is the worst role I've ever played." In his final years, he lived in a state of repentance, trying to reconnect with his family during the precious time he had left. The death of his close friend and longtime co-star, Stanley Baker, from cancer in 1976 dealt a severe blow to his spirits. Around the same time, Booth began suffering mild strokes, early signs of declining health. Nevertheless, he continued acting, driven by his undying love for the stage and screen. James Booth died on August 11, 2005, in Hadley, Essex, at the age of 77 after a long battle with illness. His final film, Keeping Mum, was dedicated in his memory, a farewell to a dedicated artist. He left an estimated estate of $3 million, thanks to his iconic roles in Zulu, The Long Good Friday, and a film and television career spanning over half a century. This includes the role of Herr Grunwald, played by Michael Sheard. Michael Sheard was born on June 18, 1938, in Aberdeen, Scotland. He appeared in the first season of the series Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, from 1983 to 1984, when he was around 45 years old, playing Herr Grunwald, a stern and cold German foreman who added tension and conflict to the series. Despite appearing in only a few episodes, he made a strong impression with his authoritative appearance and gaunt face. Born into a devout family, with a father who was a military chaplain, Sheard grew up under the weight of discipline and expectations. This strict upbringing not only forged the toughness he brought to his villainous roles, but also left a deep psychological scar, a feeling of never being good enough to truly be recognized. Despite his formal training at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, he was often underestimated and tormented by his inferiority complex, especially as he consistently played ruthless characters on screen. In contrast, Sheard's personal life was warm and peaceful alongside his wife, Rosalind Moore, whom he had been married to for over 40 years, and their 3 children. But even in that peaceful setting, he still harbored secret regrets. His long and unstable acting career often kept him away from his family, causing him to miss important moments in his children's lives. He once said that the most heartbreaking thing wasn't the roles he didn't get, but the dinners he missed when his daughter sat quietly alone at the table. The pain deepened when his close friend and co-star in Doctor Who, Ian Marter, suddenly passed away in 1986. It was a huge emotional shock that caused Sheard to withdraw even further, finding solace only in fan meet and greets and autograph sessions, the last vestiges of warmth from his fading fame. By the 1990, a misguided investment decision wiped out much of his savings. Once a familiar face on screen, Sheard struggled to make ends meet with small roles and low-budget independent film projects. He never spoke publicly about it, but those close to him admired his quiet resilience. In 2004, Sheard was diagnosed with cancer. Despite his declining health, he continued to voice actors for small projects and appear at Star Wars conventions as a final thank you to his fans. He passed away on August 31, 2005, at the age of 67 at his home on the Isle of Wight, leaving behind his devoted wife and 3 children, the only ones who truly saw the tenderness hidden beneath his tough on-screen exterior. Despite losses, financial hardship, and professional isolation, Sheard is remembered as a dedicated artist who left a lasting impression on audiences and amassed a modest net worth of approximately $1 million over 4 decades of quiet dedication to the stage and screen. Patty Joyce as the Phantom. Patrick Francis Joyce was born on May 31, 1923, in Trieste, Italy. As the grandson of the great writer James Joyce, his life took a completely different, dark, tragic, and haunting turn. At the age of 60, he played the Phantom, a strange, silent, almost supernatural character whose ghostly presence reflected Patty's own reality. From childhood, darkness always enveloped Joyce's life. In 1926, his father, a Czech banker, committed suicide after embezzling money, forcing his mother to return to Ireland with 3 young children in shame. Growing up with guilt and family trauma, Patty became increasingly withdrawn. As an adult, he experienced a short marriage that ended in divorce, leading to an estranged relationship with his only son, something he regretted until his final days. His only solace was acting, but in a career spanning over 40 years, he was almost always given supporting roles. From Coronation Street and Z-Cars to Doctor Who and EastEnders, he never had a leading role, never had a real moment to shine. Friends described him as increasingly withdrawn, frequently drunk, and visibly grief-stricken, especially after his sister's sudden death in a car accident. Then, a close friend, an actor, committed suicide, another blow to an already fragile spirit. Patty Joyce died on July 27, 2000, in London, at the age of 77 after suffering a stroke. He left behind an estimated fortune of only about $300,000, a modest sum for someone who had dedicated his entire life to art. Ricardo Montes Esfes, born Levi Isaac Arias on September 20, 1923, in Gibraltar, appeared in the second season of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, in 1986, at the age of 63, as Fess, a meticulous and enthusiastic police officer. It was a culturally rich supporting role that brought a light-hearted feel to the series. Although brief, this role continued a trend in his career of portraying friendly, slightly naive foreigners, offering warmth and humor. However, off-screen, Montes faced the pressure of being typecast into a certain kind of role. From the film Mind Your Language to countless other minor roles, he was rarely offered roles outside of stereotypical Latino characters. He once shared that he felt like he was living in a box locked by the audience. Despite his fame, he never had the opportunity to fully showcase his abilities, a reality that weighed heavily on him in his later years. His personal life was also fraught with tragedy. In 1995, his youngest son, Miguel, died in a car accident, a huge shock for a father who had always dreamed of his son following in his footsteps in acting. Montes became more withdrawn, accepting only small roles and dedicating more time to his wife and granddaughter to make up for lost time. He deeply regretted spending most of his life on film sets instead of with his family. The sudden death of his close friend Barry Evans in 1997, his co-star in the film Mind Your Language, made him even more withdrawn. Montes lived in seclusion in Richmond, occasionally visiting Gibraltar in his final years. He passed away on October 26, 2010, in Marbella, Spain, after a long battle with cancer. At the age of 87, his net worth was estimated at only around $500,000, a stark reflection of the harsh reality faced by an actor who only played supporting roles. Michael Elphick as Magawan. Michael John Elphick was born on September 19, 1946, in Chichester. At age 37, he appeared in the film Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, 1983-1986, as Magawan, a rough, violent Irish laborer who brought fear and instability to the group. Despite being a supporting character, Elphick made the role unforgettable with his terrifyingly realistic and convincing performance, to the point that many viewers couldn't distinguish between acting and reality. Behind the scenes, Elphick struggled with persistent alcoholism. From the late 1980s onwards, he frequently visited rehabilitation centers but never managed to maintain sobriety for long. At one point, he admitted to drinking 2 liters of alcohol a day, devastating both his body and mind. Every time he stood in front of the camera, it was a battle with trembling hands and blurred vision. Despite the film Boone's resounding success, attracting 11 million viewers, he never truly enjoyed his fame. His last remaining emotional anchor was his wife, Julia Alexander, a humble teacher who had been by his side since 1963. She was not only his wife but also his savior, preventing him from completely collapsing. But in 1996, Julia died of cancer, plunging him into despair. He admitted to having contemplated suicide, and despite his attempts to return to acting, he was a shadow of his former self. Family, friends, and career all crumbled under the weight of his self-destructive tendencies. The deaths of close friends like Kenneth Moore and Michael Williams further deepened his isolation. For a time, Elphick lived in near exile in Portugal, where, while drunk, he grabbed a gun and chased after car thieves. Later, when cast as Harry Slater in EastEnders, his alcoholism prevented him from continuing the role, and the character was removed from the script. On September 7, 2002, Elphick died of a heart attack at his London home, just 12 days before his 56th birthday. He reportedly left behind approximately $700,000, mostly from his peak career, much of which had dwindled over the years. Brian Pringle as Arthur Pringle. Brian Pringle was born on January 19, 1935, in Sheffield, England. He left a lasting impression on audiences with his portrayal of Arthur Pringle, the grumpy and sarcastic pub owner in the first season of the musical Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, from 1983 to 1984. When he was 48 years old, his character not only brought laughter but also embodied a typical Englishman. Arrogant, aloof, yet strangely endearing. However, behind the spotlight lay a quiet life eroded by personal pain. In the late 1966, Pringle's younger brother died in a boating accident, leaving him with a deep psychological scar. He rarely spoke about it publicly, but close friends revealed that the grief haunted him for the rest of his life. That tragedy marked a significant shift in his attitude. He became more reserved, smiled less, and often avoided large gatherings. After the death of his wife, actress Anne Jameson, in 1999, Pringle lived almost entirely in solitude in Northamptonshire. Without a partner and without the spotlight, he spent his time reading, writing an unpublished memoir, and tending a small garden behind their old brick house. In his final years, he battled heart failure, a consequence of aging and declining health. Brian Pringle died on May 15, 2003, at the age of 68, and was buried alongside his beloved wife at St. Lawrence Church Cemetery, the very place they frequented every weekend when they were young. He left behind a vast artistic legacy and a modest net worth of approximately $700,000, earned from over 4 decades of work in film, television, and theater. Gordon Titousis as Joe Saugus. Gordon Titousis was born on October 25, 1941. At the age of 61, he appeared in the 3rd season of Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, in 2002 as Joe Saugus, a calm, shrewd negotiator well-versed in Cree traditions. Although appearing in only a few episodes, this character brought a rare sense of indigenous dignity and cultural depth that reflected Titousis's real-life identity. His path was not easy. As a child, Gordon was separated from his family and forced into a Catholic boarding school as part of Canada's assimilation policy. There, he was forbidden to speak his mother tongue and endured physical and mental hardships. Isolation, shame, and cultural erosion left lasting scars, but also ignited in him a determination to protect his Cree heritage at all costs. Titousis's family life was filled with both love and tragedy. Married to Irene Sesequasis since 1965, they had 6 children together. But in 1997, their daughter, Glynis, died of cancer, leaving behind 4 young grandchildren. Without hesitation, Gordon and Irene adopted all 4 grandchildren, even though he was over 55 years old at the time. Every night, despite his grief and busy schedule, he would read Cree stories to them, considering it a sacred duty to pass on ancestral traditions. He suffered another profound loss when his spiritual mentor, Chief Dan George, passed away in 1981, a man who had guided him into the world of art. That moment solidified Titousis's determination to open doors of opportunity for Indigenous youth. He founded the Saskatchewan Indigenous Theatre Company and dedicated much of his life to teaching, mentoring, and inspiring others. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at only about $1 million, because the majority of his earnings went to community projects, cultural preservation, and helping Indigenous youth. He once said that fame is not about power, but about responsibility. Gordon Titousis died on July 5, 2011, at St. Paul's Hospital in Saskatoon from complications of pneumonia at the age of 69. He was buried at Poundmaker Cree Nation alongside loved ones and on the sacred land of his ancestors. Alan Igbon Chongvai Adi. Alan Olan Rawaju Igbon was born on May 29, 1952, in Hume, Manchester. At the age of 31, he played Addy in seasons 1 and 2 of the television series Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, from 1983 to 1986, a quiet but emotionally rich bodyguard whose silence often spoke louder than words. It was a character perfectly suited to Igbon's acting philosophy. Subtle, profound, and deeply human. Alan Igbon didn't just play characters, he embodied them. His performances were marked by a quiet intensity, speaking out for those the world often chooses to ignore. In his breakthrough, 1979 film, Scum, he played Meekin, a young prisoner consumed by rage after witnessing the wrongful death of a fellow inmate. It was a role that forced audiences to confront the harsh realities of the prison system. A few years later, he delivered another unforgettable performance as Logo in Boys from the Black Stuff, a haunting symbol of working-class men left behind during Liverpool's economic crisis. These roles transformed him into a cultural icon, a silent revolutionary on screen. But behind the camera, Igbon's life was shrouded in sadness. The biggest shock came from the loss of his older brother, the person he relied on most. That tragedy cast a long shadow, plunging him into a deep and persistent depression that he rarely spoke about, but which never completely disappeared. As time passed, work became increasingly scarce. The spotlight faded, but Alan remained true to himself. He never married, but had a stable private life with his partner Sam, a relationship not based on ceremony, but on quiet, steadfast companionship. They didn't need legal papers or solemn declarations. Their presence was enough. On December 9, 2020, Alan Igbon passed away due to complications related to pneumonia. He was 68 years old. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $500,000. A modest figure by industry standards, but one that reflects a career built on integrity rather than fame.